Hello and welcome. Namaste from New Delhi. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Coming up in the next 30 minutes. India and the European Free Trade Association or EFTA Pact comes into effect. The deal is built to unlock $100 billion in investments, 1 million jobs, apart from deeper trade ties. The US federal government shuts down for the first time in almost 7 years after senators failed to agree on a last-stage funding bill. Only essential government services available. Other employees go on unpaid leave. Death toll in the 6.9 magnitude quake in the Philippines rises to 69. Prime Minister Narendra Modi expresses sorrow at the loss of lives and solidarity with the Southeast Asian nation in this difficult time. And India's cabinet approves a mission for self-sufficiency in pulses to drive production to 35 million tons by 2030-31. Well, today marks a new chapter in India's foreign and trade policy. The much-awaited free trade agreement between India and the four-nation European bloc, EFTA or EFTA, has come into force. The deal, signed last year, promises major investments, job creation and greater market access. DD India's Akhilesh Suman has the details.
The Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement, TIPA, with the European Free Trade Associations is a landmark in India's global outreach. Signed on March 10, 2024, it comes into effect after 16 years and 21 rounds of negotiations. At its core is US dollars 100 billion investment pledge over 15 years, projected to create over 1 million jobs in India. The pact opens new opportunities for Indian farmer, gems and jewelry, textiles, machinery, and IT services.
Trade and Economic Partnership Agreement with the EFTA countries is a comprehensive agreement which covers not just trade in goods and services, but also intellectual property rights, competition, and also government procurement. EFTA countries are important trade and economic partners of India. They had invested about 12 billion in the Indian market, and Norway's pension fund also separately invested about 25 billion in the Indian market. Since these countries are also very much part of the European Economic Area, so overall, this is an important agreement for both for the European countries and also for India.
To safeguard domestic interests, India has kept dairy, farm products, and gold outside the purview of this agreement, but Indian exporters will gain new tariff advantages in EFTA markets.
Out of these four countries, Switzerland, Iceland, Liechtenstein, and Norway, Switzerland is the biggest trading partner to India among those four, and I think it will definitely benefit Indians and the Swiss, because it will ease imports of certain goods. In general, I think this agreement is probably, especially if you look at the other free trade agreement with the European Union, it's of psychological importance because it's good that these four countries now managed to make a deal, because we all know that for a very long time India and the EU were not able to come to a conclusion.
The agreement is also historic. It includes a sustainability clause, binding both sides to uphold labor rights and environmental standards. Bilateral trade is now projected to rise to US dollars 55 to 60 billion annually. With new tariff schedules in place, ports and airports are fast-tracking consignments, giving exporters an early edge under the new regime.
The implementation of free trade agreement between India and four European nations, Norway, Switzerland, Iceland and Liechtenstein, sets a template how cooperation can be established between countries who think alike, and set the ball rolling for other countries too. It can be a model for cooperation. Akhilesh Suman for DD India in Delhi.
India's Union Cabinet, chaired by Prime Minister Narendra Modi, has cleared key decisions to provide relief and boost self-reliance. The Cabinet approved an additional 3% hike in dearness allowance for central government employees and dearness relief for pensioners effective the 1st of July this year. This revision will benefit nearly 1.18 crore, that's 11.8 million employees and pensioners.
केंद्रीय कर्मचारियों को पेंशनर्स को बधाई। आज से 1/7/2025 से डीए और डियरनेस रिलीफ 58% हो जाएगा, यानी 3% बढ़ा। बहुत ही बड़ी अच्छी बढ़ोतरी है ये, और करीब करीब 49 लाख एम्प्लॉयज़ और 69 लाख पेंशनर्स को इसका सीधा लाभ मिलेगा।
In another major step, the Cabinet approved the Mission for Self-Reliance in Pulses, a 6-year program with an outlay of 11,440 crore Indian rupees. The initiative aims to strengthen domestic production and achieve self-sufficiency in pulses by 2031.
आज 11,440 करोड़ रुपीस के आउटले के साथ आत्मनिर्भर बनना पल्सेस में ये एक नया मिशन चालू किया जा रहा है। 6 साल के इस मिशन में कई सारे नए इनिशिएटिव लिए जाएंगे, जिसके बारे में मैं आपको डिटेल में आगे बताता हूँ। सबसे पहले प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ाना, पल्सेस का बेटर सीड लेना, बेटर क्वालिटी के सीड, बेटर क्वालिटी के सीड में भी बेटर प्रोटीन की क्वांटिटी कैसे हो वो भी ध्यान देना। ऐसा करके जो ग्लोबल बेस्ट बेंचमार्क्स हैं उनके साथ कंपेयर करके प्रोडक्टिविटी बढ़ाना।
The Reserve Bank of India has announced its monetary policy decision earlier today, highlighting India's favorable growth inflation dynamics. The RBI has kept the repo rate unchanged at 5.5% and maintained a neutral monetary policy stance. This is the second consecutive time that repo rate has been kept unchanged.
After a detailed assessment of the evolving macroeconomic conditions and the outlook, the MPC voted unanimously to keep the policy repo rate unchanged at 5.5%. Consequently, the STF rate remains at 5.25%, while the MSF rate and the bank rate remain at 5.75%.
The Indian Central Bank's governor noted that inflation conditions have remained mild during 2025-26 so far, and said that the inflation projection has been revised to 2.6% from earlier projected inflation rate of 3.1% in August.
The average headline inflation for this year has been consequently revised lower from 3.7%, which was projected in June, 3.1% in August, to now 2.6%. Headline inflation for Q4 this year and Q1 next year too have been revised downwards and are broadly aligned with the target despite unfavorable base effects.
The day saw Prime Minister Modi participating in the centenary celebrations of the Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh, or the RSS, in New Delhi on Wednesday. On this occasion, Prime Minister Modi released a specially designed commemorative postage stamp and coin highlighting the RSS's contributions to nation building. Now, the centenary celebrations not only honor the historical achievements of the RSS, but also highlight its enduring contributions to India's cultural journey and its message of national unity. Addressing a gathering on the occasion, Prime Minister Modi praised the unwavering faith of individuals rooted in social integration and constitutional values. The Prime Minister also said that the establishment of the RSS 100 years ago is not a coincidence, but a revival of a tradition that has endured for thousands of years.
100 वर्ष पूर्व राष्ट्रीय स्वयंसेवक संघ की स्थापना ये कोई संयोग नहीं था। ये हजारों वर्षों से चली आ रही उस परंपरा का पुनरुत्थान था, जिसमें राष्ट्र चेतना समय समय पर उस युग की चुनौतियों का सामना करने के लिए नए नए अवतारों में प्रकट होती है। इस युग में संघ उसी अनादि राष्ट्र चेतना का पुण्य अवतार है।
Defence Minister Rajnath Singh attended the 278th annual day of the Defence Accounts Department on Wednesday in Delhi. India's defence sector is celebrating 2025 as the year of reforms. On this occasion, the Defence Minister launched a series of new publications. These launches were aimed at strengthening the institutional capacity of the Controller General of Defence Accounts. The Minister also released Kosh, a statistical handbook on defence expenditure. And deserving officials were also presented with the Raksha Mantri Excellence Awards, highlighting the department's focus on professional excellence and efficiency. In his speech on the occasion, the Defence Minister stressed the critical need to create an innovative ecosystem to boost research and development in the country's defence sector.
आज के टाइम पर जो मॉडर्न टेक्नोलॉजी इस वारफेयर में यूज हो रही है वह रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट पर ही बेस्ड है। रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट की जो नीड है उसको देखते हुए डीआईडी के पास एक बड़ा चैलेंज यह है कि किस प्रकार से वह बजटरी इक्वेशन को बरकरार रखते हुए रिसर्च एंड डेवलपमेंट की फंडिंग को भी फैसिलिटेट करे।
India's Air Chief Marshal Amar Pratap Singh on Wednesday launched the book Wings of Valor in Delhi as a tribute to the bravery and sacrifice of the Indian Air Force. Written by best-selling author Swapnil Pandey, the book chronicles several of the IAF's most daring missions, including Operation Sindoor. The stories are based on first-hand accounts shared by Air Force personnel who participated in these high-risk operations. At the launch, Air Chief Marshal Singh spoke about the unsung heroes of Indian Air Force who work behind the lines and their efforts critical to every mission success.
If I don't talk about those people, I think we will be wrong. So if people have been able to show bravery, do something, it is because they have the confidence कि जो मेरे पीछे काम कर रहा है वो अच्छी तरह कर रहा है। अगर मैं किसी जहाज में उड़ रहा हूँ तो जो लोग उनको मेंटेन कर रहे हैं उस जहाज को, जो लोग मेरे घर को देख रहे हैं, मेरे पे को देख रहे हैं, जो लोग लॉजिस्टिक्स देख रहे हैं, उन सब के ऊपर मेरा कॉन्फिडेंस है कि मैं उस जहाज में उड़ रहा हूं। तो उन सब के लिए मैं चाहूंगा कि आप लोग एक बारी जोरदार तालियां बजाएं, द अनसंग हीरोज ऑफ आवर इंडियन एयर फोर्स।
And still to come in this edition of DD India Live. A blame game is on over the latest power cutoff at Ukraine's largest nuclear reactor in Zaporizhia for the last 9 days, risking a catastrophic meltdown. The Kremlin warns European leaders that it will pursue anyone who steals its money as the EU debates using frozen Russian assets to fund a 140 billion euros loan to Ukraine.
This week on Defence Dynamics, from the rails of India's heartland, Agni Prime raises, carrying a nuclear edge on the move. As the nation strengthens its shield with Anant Shastra QR SAM regiments, a new layer of defence takes shape. With the Kaveri D1 engine igniting India's aerospace dreams, the future of power is truly homegrown. This Wednesday at 8 p.m. only on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Gautam Roy. Now, Washington is once again at a standstill after almost 7 years. The U.S. government has entered a shutdown after political deadlock in the Congress, leaving hundreds of thousands of workers and key services caught in the crossfire. Here's how the standoff is unfolding.
Past midnight, the US government entered shutdown for the first time in nearly 7 years. This was after President Donald Trump and lawmakers failed to break a bitter budget deadlock. Democrats stuck to their demand for healthcare funding, affecting a stalemate. President Trump blamed Democrats for the situation, threatening to punish their voter base during the stoppage.
They are shutting it down. We're not shutting it down. We don't want it to shut down because we have the greatest period of time ever. I told you, we have $17 trillion being invested, so the last person that wants it shut down is us now. With that being said, we can do things during the shutdown that are irreversible, that are bad for them and irreversible by them, like cutting vast numbers of people out, cutting things that they like, cutting programs that they like. And you all know Russell Vought. He's become very popular recently because he can trim the budget to a level that you couldn't do any other way. So they're taking a risk by having a shutdown because of the shutdown, we can do things medically and other ways, including benefits. We can cut large numbers of people out. We don't want to do that, but we don't want fraud, waste, and abuse.
Democrats, in return, accused Republicans of holding the budget hostage.
Why do we care so much about them negotiating with us? It's not a point of pride. It's because Americans are hurting with higher costs throughout the country. Some of it's tariffs, some of it's energy costs, some of it's food costs. But one of the main reasons, and the one with the most immediate impact on raising Americans' costs, is skyrocketing costs of health care, all done by the Republicans.
Union leaders warn the shutdown will cripple critical services and worsen long-standing issues in federal hiring and retention. About 900,000 non-essential workers might be sent home without pay. Essential workers like soldiers or air traffic controllers work but won't get paid until later. Non-essential tasks stop, like approving home or farm loans, checking animal feed for safety, or enforcing business rules. Immigration courts and services might get delayed. Programs like Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, Veterans Benefits, and Food Aid keep going at first, but new applications slow down. Air travel might witness delays due to fewer staff. Small businesses and contractors might not get paid on time.
Federal employees provide such critical work for the American people, critical services, keeping our military ready, caring for our nation's veterans, caring for all of our public lands, national parks, forests, clean air, clean water, safe food, safe air travel, secure borders, secure passports, and a host of other essential services. And when you have a government shutdown like this, a lot of those critical operations grind to a halt at great waste of American taxpayers' money.
US equity futures slipped as the shutdown deadline passed. The S&P 500 futures were down 0.4%, while Nasdaq 100 contracts dropped 0.5%, reflecting fears of prolonged political paralysis in Washington. America faces not just a budget deadlock, but a crisis of confidence too. Workers in limbo, services disrupted, and markets uneasy. Bureau Report, DD India.
European Union leaders gathered in Denmark on Wednesday for the Copenhagen Competitiveness Summit. Danish Prime Minister Mette Frederiksen is hosting EU Chief Ursula von der Leyen, French President Emmanuel Macron, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, and top executives from 28 of Europe's largest companies. The summit is focusing on strengthening Europe's common defense and scaling up production with the help of industry. It will also be the first opportunity for the leaders to debate a proposal to use Russian assets frozen in Europe to fund a loan of 140 billion euros for Ukraine. The leaders will also discuss proposals for a drone wall to protect the continent, just days after airspace intrusions by unidentified unmanned aircraft forced a temporary closure of Danish airports. The Kremlin has warned European leaders that any theft of Russian assets will have serious consequences, saying it will pursue those responsible.
We have already responded to these processes repeatedly at various levels. We are talking about plans to illegally confiscate. In Russian, we call that simply theft. If someone wants to steal our property, our assets, misappropriate them, and profit from these assets, then of course, first of all, those involved will be prosecuted in one way or another. They will all be held accountable. Not only these individuals, but also the countries that make the relevant decisions. Of course, this cannot go unanswered.
Now, Germany has long been the economic engine of Europe, but the motor has been sputtering for years now, and the country has even been in recession. The current government is trying to jumpstart new initiatives to accelerate economic growth now. Lars Holter is with Deutsche Welle and is joining me from Berlin to talk about it. Good evening to you, Lars. What kind of government initiatives are you hearing are in the pipeline?
Yeah, indeed. You know, Chancellor Friedrich Merz here has called for his entire cabinet to meet at a two-day meeting here. And as that meeting started, there was a lot of talk about bureaucracy and efficiency, or rather the lack of efficiency these days between rules and regulations on the federal level. Companies here have to also deal with a lot of EU regulation and also with an immense amount of documentation of processes. All that has been criticized for years. It has all been crippling the economy here, has cost businesses a lot of money, and now the government, in this effort to jumpstart the economy again, wants to make things more efficient. And there are at least two initiatives on the agenda at a two-day meeting here that the government is holding as we speak. Two items on the agenda that are giving businesses some hope. One is to shut some government agencies or parts of agencies that have just been growing for decades and have led to agencies seemingly becoming more restrictive, if only to justify their very own existence. A smaller administrative body, of course, would also save some money, could eventually possibly allow for lower taxes. But the other idea actually might show results even faster, and that would be improved digitalization and implementing AI in all this, of course. Now, Germany is sadly far behind some other countries when it comes to digitalization, and that also has been slowing things down, including, for example, the planning and the building of new plans. So they're working on new initiatives here to generally just speed up processes.
All right. And Lars, what do businesses and industries feel about the government's likely moves, and do they also have some suggestions?
Yes, they do, and I gotta tell you, corporate Germany so far is enthusiastic about the new government initiative, so much so that over 100 companies now have signed on to a project called Made for Germany, and that is an initiative where those companies pledge major investment over the next 3 years. Among those are Germany's biggest lender, Deutsche Bank, but there's also Siemens, as well as some other great industrial companies, chemicals, pharmaceuticals, media, high-tech companies, of course. All in all, they're pledging investment of 735 billion euros within the country, and that is massive. It is actually more than the 500 billion euros that the Merz government has already pledged to invest in infrastructure. And they're saying that their own investment is also meant just to show their faith in the German economy recovering soon. And they are hoping that besides investing in the grid, in roads and services and general infrastructure, this investment clearly moves Germany and the German economy forward. Generally, they want to combine this with what Chancellor Merz calls an autumn of reforms, and companies right now are very positive and very optimistic. They see that there's a lot of ideas out there. However, we'll have to see which of those ideas will actually become reality.
All right, so far so good. Sounds good. Let's hope it all works out. Thanks a lot for joining us for the moment, Lars Holter. Now, hospitals on the Philippine island of Cebu have been overwhelmed after a magnitude 6.9 earthquake hit the region. At least 69 people have been killed, 150 injured after a powerful quake in the Philippines, marking one of the country's most devastating disasters this year, hit the bunch of islands. Now, some of the injured are being treated on beds on the driveway of the Cebu Provincial Hospital in Bogo. They had been wheeled out of the building amid fears of further aftershocks. The Philippines Coast Guard on Wednesday said that it was sending additional aid to help victims of the quake. The Coast Guard ship that departed Manila carried medical doctors, nurses and other personnel equipped for an emergency response and would be deployed in the affected areas. Philippines President Ferdinand Marcos Jr. assured survivors of swift assistance, with cabinet secretaries on the ground directing relief operations. And search and rescue operations have been underway amid even power outages and damaged buildings. Prime Minister Narendra Modi has expressed deep grief over the loss of lives and widespread damage caused by an earthquake in the Philippines. Taking to social media platform X, the Prime Minister wrote, "Deeply saddened to learn about the loss of lives and widespread damage caused by the earthquake in the Philippines. My thoughts and prayers are with the bereaved families. I wish the injured a speedy recovery. India stands in solidarity with the Philippines at this difficult time." Now, the Kremlin has dismissed Ukraine's accusations of shelling at the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant as foolish, insisting Moscow, which controls the facility, is ensuring its safety. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said Russian forces are safeguarding the site amid repeated attacks he blames on Ukraine, while Kyiv accuses Moscow of carrying out the shelling.
It is under our control, which is why the Russian side is ensuring safety of this plant. At the same time, everybody knows it is not a secret to anybody that the plant and its infrastructure come under constant fire from the Kyiv regime. As you can understand, it is, to say the least, silly to accuse Russia of bombing a station that it is controlling.
Earlier, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky expressed alarm over the situation, saying that Russian shelling is preventing restoration of the power line. The Soviet-era plant has relied on emergency diesel generators for a 9th consecutive day after an external power line was cut. And that's all for this edition of DD India Live, but let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. And for those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India's mobile app. It's available on both Android and iOS. Just scan the QR code on the screen and download the app right away. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Gautam Roy, and from all of us here in Delhi, thanks for watching DD India Live.